The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the Zexari patrol ship. Commander Vexthor's three eyes focused on the screen showing a small vessel drifting through their territory. The ship looked old and poorly made. Its hull was a simple metal design with basic thrusters that any civilized species would have abandoned centuries ago. "Scan complete, Commander," said the sensor officer. "The vessel appears to be a survey ship. Minimal weapons. Their technology is at least 200 years behind our standards." Vexthor relaxed slightly in his command chair. Another primitive species stumbling into their space. Probably lost or looking for resources they had no claim to. This happened every few cycles. A quick warning, maybe a small fine, and they would send the ship back where it came from. "Open a channel," Vexthor ordered. Standard greeting protocol. The communications officer activated the transmission array. Vexthor cleared his throat and spoke in the common galactic language that most species could translate. "Unknown vessel, you have entered Zexari Confederation space without authorization. Identify yourself immediately and prepare to be escorted to the nearest outpost for processing." The bridge crew went about their normal duties while waiting for a response. The ship's captain was probably panicking right now, scrambling to understand the message and prepare some kind of apology. Vexthor had done this hundreds of times. It was boring but necessary work. The reply came through 30 seconds later. The voice was calm and clear, speaking in perfect galactic common with no hint of fear or confusion. "This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the ESS Ranger. You are addressing Earth Command Authority. State your intentions." Every sound on the bridge stopped. The sensor officer's hand froze over his console. The weapons officer turned to stare at Vexthor with wide eyes. Even the ship's computer seemed to pause for a moment. "Earth Command." The words hung in the air like poison. Vexthor felt his blood turn cold. His training had covered first contact protocols, pirate encounters, and even hostile alien invasions. But nothing had prepared him for this. No one prepared for this because it was never supposed to happen. "Commander," the communications officer whispered, her voice shaking. "Did he say Earth Command?" Vexthor couldn't speak. His mind raced through everything he knew about Earth, which wasn't much because most species refused to talk about it. The forbidden world. The quarantine system. The place where the harvesters went to die. Every child in the galaxy grew up hearing the story. 300 years ago, the Harvester Empire was the most powerful force in known space. They controlled 30 star systems and had destroyed dozens of civilizations. When they found Earth, a primitive world just beginning to explore its own solar system, they expected an easy conquest. The Harvesters sent their fleets to Earth, and then the Harvesters disappeared. Not defeated, not driven back, but erased from existence. Their home worlds were found empty, their colonies abandoned, their massive war fleets reduced to debris fields, and in the center of it all was Earth, a planet that shouldn't have been able to fight back. The Galactic Council placed warning beacons around the Sol system. They declared Earth off-limits to all species. They agreed to never go near human space again. The hope was that humanity would stay contained, trapped in their own system, and eventually forget about the galaxy outside. For 300 years it worked. No human ships were ever seen outside the Sol system. Slowly, the younger generations began to think of humans as myths, stories told to scare aggressive species into behaving. Some even wondered if humans had destroyed themselves, as violent species often did. But now a human ship was here in Zexari space, and its captain was speaking as if he had every right to be there. "Sir, what do we do?" asked the weapons officer. Vexthor looked at his fleet. 12 warships, all heavily armed and ready for combat. Against one small human survey vessel with outdated technology and minimal weapons, they should have overwhelming superiority. But the stories said the Harvesters thought the same thing. "Do not power up weapons," Vexthor said quickly. "Keep all systems in passive mode." He needed to think. If he attacked and destroyed the human ship, what would happen? Would more humans come? Would Earth Command send their real warships, the ones that erased the Harvesters from existence? And if he let them go, what would his superiors say? How would he explain that he allowed a human vessel to fly through Zexari space without even questioning it? The sensor officer spoke up nervously. "Commander, I'm detecting something strange. That ship's power signature doesn't match its appearance. The energy output is much higher than it should be for a vessel that size." Vexthor felt his stomach drop. Of course it was. Humans had spent 300 years in isolation. Who knew what kind of technology they had developed? That old-looking hull could be hiding weapons systems the galaxy had never seen before. "Open the channel again," Vexthor said. He chose his words carefully. "Captain Hayes, the Zexari Confederation welcomes you. We were simply conducting routine identification procedures. May I ask what brings Earth Command to this region of space?" There was a pause before Hayes responded. "We're conducting survey operations. Earth Command is expanding our area of operations and mapping new territories. We have no hostile intentions toward the Zexari Confederation or any other species, provided they don't interfere with our mission." Expanding, mapping new territories. The words sent chills through every crew member on the bridge. Humans weren't just leaving their home system. They were spreading out into the galaxy. The thing every species feared for 3 centuries was finally happening. "I understand, Captain," Vexthor said, keeping his voice steady. "Would you be willing to wait while we contact our government? They would like to establish formal communications with Earth Command." "We can wait for 1 standard hour," Hayes replied. "After that, we need to continue our mission schedule." The channel closed. Vexthor immediately opened a priority line to Zexari High Command. His superiors needed to know about this immediately. More than that, the Galactic Council needed to know. Every species in known space needed to know that humans were no longer content to stay home. As Vexthor waited for his transmission to connect, he looked at the small human ship on his screen. It just floated there calmly, as if surrounded by 12 warships was a completely normal situation. Maybe for humans it was. Maybe they had fought so many wars against themselves that a fleet of alien ships didn't even worry them. The transmission connected, and Vexthor began his report. He knew his life was about to become very complicated. The encounter that was supposed to be a boring patrol duty had just become the most important first contact event in 300 years. On the screen, the human ship remained still, waiting patiently. Inside it, Captain Hayes and his crew had no idea that their simple survey mission had just thrown the entire galaxy into chaos. Or perhaps they knew exactly what they were doing, and that was the most terrifying possibility of all. Captain Daniel Hayes stood on the bridge of the ESS Ranger, watching the alien fleet maintain their distance. His first officer, Lieutenant Karen Price, worked at her console while occasionally glancing at the tactical display. 12 ships surrounded them, each one large enough to carry a crew of hundreds. The Ranger's crew numbered only 43. "They're scared," Karen said quietly. "Look at their formation. They're keeping maximum distance while maintaining visual contact. Classic defensive posture." Daniel nodded. He'd seen the same thing at the last 3 encounters. Every species they met reacted the same way. Initial contact, mention of Earth Command, then immediate fear. It was getting predictable. "I don't understand why they're all so afraid of us," said Lisa Grant from the communication station. She was young, only 24, and this was her first mission outside the Sol system. "We haven't done anything to them." "It's not about what we've done recently," Daniel explained. "It's about what happened 300 years ago." Karen pulled up a historical file on her screen. "The Harvest Wars. Every human kid learns about it in school, but I wonder how different the story sounds from the alien perspective." Daniel remembered his own history lessons. The facts were simple enough. In the year 2187, humanity had just established colonies on Mars and Europa. They were still using primitive fusion drives and had barely begun exploring beyond their own solar system. Then the Harvesters arrived. The Harvester Empire was massive. They controlled 30 star systems and had conquered over 50 different species. Their military doctrine was simple: find primitive worlds, overwhelm them with superior technology, and strip the planets of resources. They had done it dozens of times before. Earth was supposed to be easy. The Harvesters sent their first wave expecting quick surrender. Instead, they found a species that had spent 10,000 years fighting wars against itself. Humans knew every trick of warfare, every strategy, every brutal tactic. They had nuclear weapons, biological weapons, chemical weapons, and the willingness to use all of them. But the Harvesters had better technology. Their shields could stop human missiles. Their energy weapons could burn through human ships. The first battles were disasters for Earth. Entire defense fleets were destroyed. The Mars colony was attacked. Millions died in the opening weeks. Then humanity did something the Harvesters didn't expect. They stopped fighting fair. Human engineers studied captured Harvester technology and found weaknesses. Human hackers broke into Harvester computer systems. Human soldiers boarded harvester ships using nothing but boarding pods and determination. And when a human captain named Paul Carter figured out how to track a harvester ship back to its home base, everything changed. Earth Command sent every available ship in a massive assault on the harvester homeworld. They didn't try to conquer it. They didn't try to negotiate. They destroyed it completely, along with every harvester fleet that tried to respond. Then they moved to the next harvester world and the next, hunting down every trace of the Empire that had dared to attack Earth. Within 2 years, the Harvester Empire ceased to exist. 30 star systems were left empty. 50 conquered species were suddenly free, and humanity went back to Earth, closed their borders, and didn't speak to anyone for 300 years. The galaxy responded by quarantining Earth. They placed warning beacons around the Sol system. They told every species to stay away from humans. And they spent 3 centuries wondering if humanity would eventually emerge to conquer them all. From their perspective, Daniel said to Lisa, "We're not explorers. We're the species that committed genocide against an entire empire. We're the monsters that killed billions and didn't lose any sleep over it." "But the harvesters attacked us first," Lisa protested. "Doesn't matter," Karen said. "What matters is that we won so completely that we erased them from existence. That's what these aliens remember. That's what they fear." The communications console beeped. Lisa checked it and frowned. "Sir, we're receiving multiple transmissions. Not from the Zexari fleet, from other sources. I think word is spreading about our presence here." Daniel wasn't surprised. Their encounter with the Zexari was probably being broadcast across half the sector by now. Every species with a listening post would know that humans were no longer staying home. "Let them talk," Daniel said. "We're not doing anything wrong. We're surveying unclaimed space and documenting resources. That's not a crime." "Commander Vexthor is hailing us again," Lisa reported. Daniel nodded for her to open the channel. The alien commander's face appeared on the screen. He still looked nervous, but he was trying to maintain a professional demeanor. "Captain Hayes, I have received word from my government. They request a formal meeting to discuss Earth Command's presence in this region. They would like to establish diplomatic protocols." "We're willing to meet," Daniel replied. "But understand that we're not asking for permission to be here. We're informing you of our presence as a courtesy." Vexthor's expression showed he didn't like that answer, but he didn't argue. "Understood, Captain. We will arrange for a diplomatic envoy to meet with you at a neutral location." The channel closed. Karen turned to Daniel with a concerned look. "That was pretty blunt. Are we trying to make them more afraid of us?" "I'm being honest," Daniel said. "Earth Command's position is clear. We spent 300 years isolated because the galaxy told us to stay home. We've built up our technology, expanded through our own solar system, and now we need more space. We're not going to ask permission anymore." Lisa looked uncomfortable. "But sir, if we act too aggressive, won't that just confirm their fears about us?" Daniel sat in his command chair and considered the question. It was a fair point. Earth Command's strategy was based on humanity's reputation. Their mere presence made other species back down. But that strategy only worked if aliens believed humans were as dangerous as the legends claimed. "The galaxy spent 300 years afraid of us," Daniel said finally. "That fear kept them away and gave us time to develop. Now we're using that fear to establish ourselves without firing a shot. It's not perfect, but it's better than fighting our way through every system." Karen pulled up a star map showing their survey route. "We've encountered 7 different species in the last 3 months. All of them backed down as soon as we identified ourselves. No shots fired, no conflicts, just peaceful withdrawal. From that perspective, our reputation is working." "But for how long?" Lisa asked. "Eventually, some species is going to test us. They're going to want to see if humans are really as dangerous as the stories say." Daniel knew she was right. Earth Command's intelligence division had predicted this scenario. Sooner or later, probably sooner, some aggressive species would decide to challenge humanity's expansion. When that happened, Earth would have to demonstrate that their reputation was earned, not just inherited. The tactical display showed the Zexari fleet beginning to move. They were pulling back, giving the Ranger more space. Vexthor was clearly waiting for orders from his government before deciding how to proceed. "How many ships does Earth Command have now?" Lisa asked suddenly. Karen smiled. "That's classified. But I can tell you we have more than just survey vessels." Daniel thought about the Earth Command fleet waiting in reserve back in the Sol system. Thousands of ships built during 3 centuries of isolation, Advanced weapon systems developed without any outside interference. Defensive networks that covered every major human colony. The galaxy thought the Ranger was alone out here. They had no idea how wrong they were. Let's hope they decide to talk instead of fight, Daniel said. Because if they choose to fight, they're going to learn the same lesson the Harvesters did. The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew what that lesson was. Humanity didn't start fights, but they finished them. And when humans decided to end a fight, they didn't leave any doubt about the outcome. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened on Unity Prime, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for all member species. Ambassadors hurried through the corridors, their various forms creating a chaotic mix of shapes, sizes, and colors. The news about the human ship had spread through the galaxy in less than a day, and everyone wanted answers. Ambassador Kreenash of the Althari Collective stood at the central podium, her forearms gesturing dramatically as she spoke to the assembled representatives. Her species had a reputation for military strength, and her aggressive posture reflected that heritage. "We cannot ignore this threat," Kreenash declared. "For 300 years we maintained the quarantine around Earth. We agreed as a galactic community to leave them alone, hoping they would remain contained. Now they have broken that agreement. They are expanding into our space without permission, without negotiation, without respect for established territorial boundaries." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the chamber. Many species feared humanity's return, and Kreenash was voicing their concerns. "The humans claim they are conducting peaceful surveys," Kreenash continued. "But we all know their history. We know what they did to the Harvesters. An entire empire, 30 star systems, billions of lives, all erased in less than 2 years. And the humans showed no mercy, no hesitation, no regret." She pulled up a holographic display showing maps of Harvester territory before and after the war. The before map showed a sprawling empire controlling a significant portion of the galaxy. The aftermap showed nothing but empty systems and dead worlds. "This is what humans do when threatened," Kreenash said. "They don't defend. They don't negotiate. They destroy completely. And now they're moving into our territories. How long before they decide we're a threat? How long before we become the next Harvesters?" The chamber erupted in debate. Some ambassadors supported Kreenash's position, arguing for immediate military action. Others called for caution, pointing out that attacking humanity could trigger the exact war everyone wanted to avoid. Elder Counselor Tomris of the Palaxian Union rose slowly from his seat. He was old even by the standards of his long-lived species. His gray skin showed the wear of centuries, and his movements were careful and deliberate. When he spoke, his voice carried the weight of experience. "I remember the Harvest Wars," Tomris said quietly. The chamber fell silent. Few beings alive today had been present during that time. I was a junior diplomat then, serving on the border of Harvester space. My people watched as the Harvesters conquered world after world. We were too weak to stop them, too afraid to try. He moved to the holographic display and changed the image. Now it showed detailed reports from Palaxian observers during the war. When the Harvesters attacked Earth, we monitored the conflict from a distance. We expected Earth to fall within weeks, maybe days. The Harvesters had overwhelming technological superiority. Their weapons were centuries ahead of human technology. Their shields could withstand anything Earth could throw at them. Tomris paused, his old eyes scanning the assembled ambassadors. And yet the humans won. Not through superior technology, but through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. They studied their enemy, found weaknesses, and exploited them ruthlessly. They didn't fight fair. They fought to win. He changed the display again, showing footage that made several ambassadors look away. It depicted the aftermath of human attacks on Harvester worlds. Not just military targets, but complete destruction of infrastructure, industry, and population centers. The humans didn't just defeat the Harvesters militarily, Tomris continued. They eliminated them as a species. They made sure the Harvesters could never threaten anyone again. From a strategic perspective, it was brilliant. From a moral perspective, it was horrifying. Kreenash interrupted. Exactly my point. They are capable of genocide. We should strike first before they grow strong enough to threaten us all. You misunderstand me, Tomris said calmly. I'm not arguing for or against military action. I'm providing context. The humans who fought the Harvest Wars were primitive by our standards. They used fusion drives and kinetic weapons. Now they've had 300 years to develop in isolation, 300 years to advance their technology without outside interference. He pulled up new data, information gathered by Palaxian deep space monitoring stations over the centuries. The chamber gasped as they saw the numbers. Our stations detected massive energy signatures from the Sol system over the past 3 centuries. Industrial output consistent with building thousands of ships. Power generation far beyond what their population should require. Experimental weapon tests that our sensors couldn't fully analyze. Tomris let that information sink in before continuing. The human ship that Commander Vexthor encountered is a survey vessel. One ship, lightly armed, designed for exploration, and yet it carries energy signatures that surpass most of our military cruisers. If that's their survey ship, imagine what their warships are like. The chamber erupted in chaos. Ambassadors shouted questions, demanded more information, and argued with each other. The moderator called for order, but it took several minutes for the noise to die down. A new voice spoke up. Ambassador Felmore of the Trinari stood, his peaceful species known throughout the galaxy for diplomatic skill. Perhaps we're approaching this wrong. Instead of debating whether to fight or flee, why don't we try talking to them? Kreenash scoffed. Talk? What is there to discuss? They're invading our space. They claim to be surveying unclaimed territories, Felmore countered. Have we verified their flight path? Are they actually entering sovereign space, or are they exploring the empty systems between our territories? The question gave the council pause. In the panic following the news, no one had actually checked where the human ship was going. A quick review of the data showed that the Ranger had been moving through systems that were technically unclaimed, though several species considered them within their sphere of influence. They're navigating through disputed territory, Felmore observed. From their perspective, they might believe they're following proper protocols. Perhaps a simple conversation could clear up any misunderstandings. And if conversation fails? Kreenash demanded. What then? Felmore met her gaze steadily. Then at least we'll know we tried diplomacy before resorting to violence, and we'll have a better understanding of what we're facing. The council debated for hours. Arguments went back and forth with no clear consensus emerging. Finally, they put it to a vote. The decision was close, but ultimately the majority agreed with Felmore's approach. They would send a diplomatic envoy to make official contact with Earth Command. Felmore himself volunteered for the mission. He understood the risk. If humans were as aggressive as their reputation suggested, he might not return. But someone had to try. Someone had to extend a hand in peace before the galaxy descended into war. As the council session ended, Tomris approached Felmore privately. You're brave to take this mission. Or foolish, Felmore replied with a slight smile. Perhaps both, Tomris agreed. But I hope you succeed. I've seen one war with humanity. I don't want to see another. What do you think will happen? Felmore asked. Tomris was quiet for a moment. I think humans are more reasonable than their reputation suggests. They fought the Harvesters because they were attacked. They didn't continue expanding after winning. They went home and stayed there for 3 centuries. That doesn't sound like a species bent on conquest, but now they're expanding again, Felmore pointed out. Yes, and that's what worries me, Tomris said. Not because I think they want to conquer us, but because they clearly don't care what we think. They're expanding because they've decided to, and they're not asking permission. That confidence, that certainty suggests they have resources and capabilities we can't imagine. Felmore nodded slowly. Then I'll need to be very careful in how I approach them. Be honest, Tomris advised. Humans respect honesty even if they don't like what they hear. And whatever you do, don't threaten them. The worst thing we could do is make them think we're planning to attack. As Felmore prepared for his mission, word spread through the galaxy. Some species waited hopefully for a peaceful resolution. Others quietly began mobilizing their military forces just in case. And somewhere in the darkness of space, Captain Daniel Hayes continued his survey mission, unaware that his simple presence had divided the entire galactic community. Ambassador Felmore's ship approached the coordinates where the human vessel waited. His crew was nervous. They had powered down all weapon systems and were broadcasting peaceful intentions on every frequency they could access. The last thing anyone wanted was for the humans to interpret their arrival as hostile. We're receiving a response, said the communications officer. The human ship acknowledges our peaceful approach and agrees to a meeting. Felmore felt relief wash over him. At least they were willing to talk. That was a good sign. He reviewed his notes one more time, preparing for what might be the most important conversation of his career. The meeting took place on a small neutral station that had been abandoned years ago. Both sides agreed it was safer than meeting on either ship. Fillmore arrived with only 2 aides, wanting to appear non-threatening. He wondered what the humans would bring. Captain Daniel Hayes entered the meeting room with Lieutenant Karen Price at his side. Fillmore was surprised by how ordinary they looked. Humans were bipedal, similar to several other species, with 2 arms, 2 legs, and a single head. They wore simple uniforms that were functional rather than decorative. Nothing about their appearance suggested they were the feared warriors of galactic legend. But Fillmore had studied Earth's history. He knew that humans had evolved as persistence hunters, creatures that could chase prey for days without stopping. They had eyes positioned for forward vision like predators, and their body language showed confidence bordering on arrogance. "Ambassador Fillmore," Daniel said, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. "Thank you for coming." Fillmore carefully took the offered hand, noting the firm grip. "Captain Hayes, I represent the Galactic Council. We wanted to establish formal contact with Earth Command and discuss your presence in our region of space." Daniel gestured to the chairs around the table. "Please sit. We're happy to talk." The meeting began cordially enough. Fillmore explained the Council's concerns about human expansion. Daniel listened politely, occasionally asking questions but mostly letting the ambassador speak. When Fillmore finished, Daniel leaned back in his chair. "I understand your concerns," Daniel said, "but I think there's been a misunderstanding about Earth's intentions." "Please, explain," Fillmore said hopefully. 300 years ago, the Harvesters attacked Earth. We defended ourselves. After we won, the galactic community placed a quarantine around our system. They told us to stay home, to not venture into space. We had no choice but to agree. We were weak, isolated and recovering from a war. Karen pulled up a star map on a portable display. During those 300 years, humanity didn't stop developing. We colonized every planet and moon in our solar system. We built cities in the asteroid belt. We established research stations around Jupiter and Saturn. But eventually we ran out of room. Daniel continued. Our population is now over 50 billion people. Our industries need resources we can't get from the Sol system alone. We need to expand. It's not a choice anymore. It's a necessity. I understand, Fillmore said carefully, but surely you can see how your sudden expansion concerns other species. Given your history with the Harvesters, many fear you intend to conquer rather than peacefully settle. Daniel's expression hardened slightly. We're not the Harvesters. We didn't start that war. They came to Earth planning to enslave us, to strip our world of resources. What happened to them was their own fault. The Galactic Council agrees, Fillmore said quickly. No one blames Earth for defending itself. But the complete destruction of an entire empire, that's what concerns people. What were we supposed to do? Karen asked. Let them retreat, rebuild, and attack us again? The Harvesters had conquered 50 species before us. They had a pattern. They didn't negotiate. They didn't show mercy. Why should we have shown them any? Fillmore had no good answer to that. From a logical perspective, humanity's actions made sense, but the brutality of their victory still haunted galactic memory. Before he could respond, the door opened. A new figure entered, wearing a different uniform. Daniel stood and gestured to the newcomer. Ambassador, this is Commander Paul Carter, official liaison for Earth Command. Fillmore studied the new human carefully. Carter was older than Daniel, with gray hair and eyes that suggested he had seen much combat. This was someone who carried authority naturally. Paul sat down and looked directly at Fillmore. Let me be clear about Earth's position, Ambassador. We spent 300 years in isolation because your galactic community demanded it. We complied even though we had every right to explore space. We built our civilization, advanced our technology, and prepared for the day when we would no longer accept being confined. That day is now. Paul continued. Earth Command is expanding into unclaimed space. We're not invading anyone's territory. We're not threatening any species. We're simply taking what we need to ensure humanity's survival and growth. But surely we can establish boundaries, Fillmore suggested. Regions where human expansion would not conflict with other species. Paul's smile was cold. Ambassador, let me tell you what humanity learned from the Harvest Wars. We learned that asking for permission makes you weak. We learned that respecting boundaries only works if everyone else respects them too. And we learned that the only real security comes from being strong enough that others think twice before challenging you. The bluntness shocked Fillmore. Are you saying Earth intends to ignore all territorial agreements? I'm saying we'll settle where we choose, Paul replied. Other species are welcome to coexist peacefully with us. They're welcome to trade, to share knowledge, to build relationships, but they're not welcome to tell us where we can or cannot go. Karen added in a softer tone. We're not looking for war, Ambassador. We're looking for space to grow. If other species give us that space peacefully, we'll be peaceful neighbors. But if they try to stop us through force, we'll respond the same way we responded to the harvesters. The threat was clear, even if it was delivered calmly. Fellmore felt the weight of the mission on his shoulders. The Council had sent him to negotiate boundaries, to establish rules of engagement. But the humans weren't interested in negotiation. They were informing the galaxy of their intentions, not asking permission. What if we cannot accept those terms? Fellmore asked quietly. Paul leaned forward. Then you'll have to decide if stopping us is worth the cost. The harvesters made that decision. It didn't work out well for them. The meeting continued for another hour, but the fundamental positions didn't change. Earth Command would expand as they saw fit. The galactic community could accept it peacefully or try to stop them through force. There was no middle ground, no compromise, no diplomatic solution that satisfied both sides. As Fellmore prepared to leave, Daniel spoke one more time. Ambassador, I know this isn't the outcome you hoped for, but understand that humans are not monsters. We don't want to conquer the galaxy. We don't want to destroy other civilizations. We just want to exist without constantly looking over our shoulder, waiting for the next species to decide we're easy prey. The harvesters taught us a lesson, Daniel continued. They taught us that mercy is a luxury only the strong can afford. And they taught us that the galaxy respects strength more than anything else. So that's what we're showing you. Strength. Fellmore nodded slowly. I will convey your position to the Council. One more thing, Paul said. Tell them that the Ranger isn't alone out here. Earth Command has assets positioned throughout this region. If anyone decides to test us, they'll find out exactly how much we've advanced in 300 years. As Fellmore's ship departed, he felt the weight of failure. He had come hoping to negotiate peace, to establish boundaries and protocols that would prevent war. Instead, he was returning with what amounted to an ultimatum: accept human expansion or prepare for conflict. He thought about Paul's words about humanity learning that strength was the only real security. It was a brutal philosophy, but Fellmore couldn't deny its logic. The galaxy had isolated Earth for 300 years, treating them as a threat to be contained. Now humanity was breaking free of that containment, and they were doing it on their own terms. The question now was how the Galactic Council would respond. Would they accept humanity's terms and work toward peaceful coexistence? Or would they decide that humans were too dangerous to leave unchecked? Fellmore feared he already knew the answer. Too many species were afraid, and fear made people do foolish things. As his ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading back to Unity Prime, Fellmore wondered if he had just witnessed the beginning of the next great galactic war. And if so, he wondered which side would survive it. Ambassador Fellmore delivered his report to the Galactic Council with a heavy heart. The chamber fell into stunned silence as he described the meeting with Earth Command's representatives. When he finished, the reaction was exactly what he feared. This is unacceptable, Kreenash declared, standing immediately. They're not negotiating. They're dictating terms to the entire galaxy. Other ambassadors joined in agreement. The mood shifted quickly from concern to anger. Species that had remained neutral now spoke up, offended by humanity's apparent arrogance. Even peaceful delegations expressed frustration at Earth's unwillingness to respect established territorial boundaries. They threatened us, one ambassador said. They told us to accept their expansion or face the same fate as the harvesters. Elder Tomris tried to inject reason into the debate. They didn't threaten unprovoked expansion. They simply stated they would defend themselves if attacked. It amounts to the same thing, Kreenash argued. They're expanding into space that borders our territories. When conflicts arise, and they will, they'll claim we started it. Then they'll use that as justification to destroy us. The debate raged for hours. Finally, Kreenash called for a vote. We should assemble a coalition fleet and demonstrate that the galaxy will not tolerate human aggression. A show of force will make them reconsider their position. You're suggesting we threaten them? Fellmore asked in disbelief. I'm suggesting we show them they're not the only ones with military power, Kreenash replied. If we approach with overwhelming numbers, they'll understand that expansion comes with consequences. Tomris stood, his old voice carrying throughout the chamber. This is madness. You're proposing exactly what I warned against. You want to threaten the species that eliminated the Harvester Empire? The Harvesters were careless, Kreenash said dismissively. They attacked Earth directly. We're simply establishing a presence in neutral space. If the humans respond with violence, they'll prove they're the aggressors. If they back down, we'll have established boundaries through strength. The logic appealed to many council members. The vote passed, though not unanimously. A coalition fleet would assemble and intercept the Ranger. They would demand Earth Command respect galactic authority and accept negotiated boundaries. If the humans refused, the fleet would escort them back to Sol System. Tomris left the chamber in disgust. He had seen this pattern before, pride and fear combining to create terrible decisions. He sent a message to his people's monitoring stations, asking them to track the coalition fleet. If things went badly, he wanted a record of what happened. Meanwhile, aboard the Ranger, Captain Daniel Hayes received an encrypted transmission. It came from an unexpected source, a Palaxian monitoring station. The message contained coordinates, force assessments, and a timeline. Someone was warning them about the approaching coalition fleet. 300 ships, Karen said, reading the data. They're assembling forces from 12 different species. Estimated arrival at our position in 48 hours. Lisa looked worried. That's a lot of ships, Captain. Even if our technology is better, those numbers are overwhelming. Daniel studied the tactical display. The coalition was bringing everything they had, trying to intimidate Earth Command into backing down. It was a reasonable strategy if you didn't understand who you were dealing with. Contact Earth Command, Daniel ordered. Send them our position and the coalition's composition. Request immediate support, Karen worked her console. Message sent. Response coming through already. She paused, reading the reply. Sir, they say support is already en route. They've been tracking the coalition's movements for the past 6 hours. Daniel smiled. Earth Command's intelligence network was more extensive than the galaxy realized. They had been monitoring communications across multiple sectors, anticipating exactly this scenario. How long until our support arrives? Daniel asked. They're already here, Karen said, amazement in her voice. They've been holding position in stealth mode, waiting to see how this played out. Daniel activated the fleet-wide communication channel. All Earth Command vessels, this is Captain Hayes. Break stealth and assume defensive formation around the Ranger. On the tactical display, new contacts appeared. 12 ships materialized seemingly out of nowhere, taking up positions around the small survey vessel. But these weren't survey ships. These were warships, each one massive and bristling with weapon systems the Coalition had never seen before. Lisa stared at the display. They were here the whole time. We were never alone. Earth Command doesn't send survey ships into unknown territory without support, Daniel explained. We just don't advertise that support unless necessary. The Coalition fleet dropped out of faster-than-light travel precisely on schedule, 48 hours after assembling. Their 300 ships spread out in an impressive formation designed to intimidate. Every captain expected to find one small human vessel, isolated and vulnerable. Instead, they found 12 human warships waiting in perfect formation. The energy signatures coming from those ships made every sensor on every Coalition vessel scream warnings. The power output from a single human warship exceeded the combined output of 10 Coalition cruisers. Commander Paul Carter's face appeared on every Coalition ship's view screen simultaneously. The fact that humans could override their communication systems so easily sent chills through every crew member. If they could control communications, what else could they control? This is Commander Paul Carter of Earth Command, he said calmly. We are aware of your intentions. You came here to threaten us into compliance with your territorial demands. We are here to explain why that was a mistake. On the Coalition flagship, Admiral Courthall of the Vorten Empire stared at the display in shock. They had brought 300 ships. Surely that was enough to intimidate the humans. But looking at the power readings from those 12 warships, he wasn't so certain anymore. You have 30 seconds to begin retreat maneuvers, Paul continued. After that, we will interpret your presence as hostile action and respond accordingly. Earth Command does not bluff. Earth Command does not negotiate under threat. You have been warned. The Coalition Fleet Command Channel erupted in chaos. Admirals from different species argued about what to do. Some wanted to stand firm, insisting that backing down would show weakness. Others wanted to retreat immediately, Recognizing that they were outmatched, Kortal made the decision. He had fought in enough wars to recognize when the tactical situation had changed. All ships begin retreat procedures. Execute jump to light speed on my mark. Admiral, we can't just run, one of his subordinates protested. Look at those power signatures, Kortal snapped. Those 12 ships could probably destroy our entire fleet. We came here to make a show of force, not to commit suicide. The coalition fleet began breaking formation, ships scrambling to activate their faster-than-light drives. It wasn't an organized retreat. It was barely controlled panic. Ships collided with each other trying to escape. Not a single shot was fired, but the battle was decisively over. Within 5 minutes, the coalition fleet was gone. The human warships remained in formation, watching them go. Daniel stood on the Ranger's bridge, feeling both satisfaction and concern. They had proven Earth's strength without firing a shot, but they had also escalated tensions dramatically. Captain, we're receiving a message from Unity Prime, Lisa reported. It's from the Galactic Council. They want to establish formal diplomatic relations with Earth Command. Daniel smiled. That's more like it. Open the channel. The weeks that followed saw rapid changes throughout the galaxy. The Galactic Council formally recognized Earth Command as a sovereign authority, with full rights to explore and settle unclaimed space. Species began establishing embassies on New Boston, humanity's first colony outside the Sol system. Trade agreements were signed. Defense pacts were discussed. Cultural exchanges began. The fear didn't disappear entirely. Many species still remembered the Harvest Wars and worried about human expansion, but now that fear was tempered with respect and a desire for peaceful relations. Nobody wanted to test whether Earth Command's warships were as dangerous as they appeared. Ambassador Fellmore found himself appointed as the primary liaison between the Galactic Council and Earth Command. His first meeting with Paul Carter in an official capacity was surprisingly pleasant. You knew the coalition fleet was coming, Fellmore said. You were monitoring our communications the entire time. Paul didn't deny it. We've been monitoring the galaxy for 300 years, Ambassador. We learned a long time ago that the best defense is knowing what others are planning before they do it. That's somewhat disturbing, Fellmore admitted. It's practical, Paul replied. Would you prefer we remained ignorant and paranoid? This way we know which species are genuine threats and which are just posturing. 6 months after the confrontation, Lisa Grant stood on the observation deck of Humanity's Hope, the first joint human-alien research station. Scientists from 12 different species worked together studying a nearby nebula. It was a small step, but it represented something important. I never thought I'd see this, Lisa said to Karen, who had been reassigned to the station as chief science officer. Humans and aliens working together peacefully.